Hello, I'm Ethan Hanks, and on this episode of the Wizard Club, we will be talking about Star Wars X-Wing by Fantasy Flight Games. In particular, the epic ships and how they play in the game, in an epic game. So, as you notice, the first couple things that you'll see different is they are on two bases, they have a different maneuver template, and they come with their own damage deck. And as you can see here, there's two different sides of a damage deck, and that's because in epic play, these ships are supposed to be massive ships. So there is a fore and an aft section to each ship. So when they take damage in a particular section, you'll be taking the damage card out of the section that they are hit in. They also have their own crits in each section, and they react differently depending if they're in the back, the fore, or the aft. Now, movement, we'll discuss movement with these epic ships, is fairly simple. It's with this template, and they basically can only go straight, one curve, or a two curve. And how you do that is by placing the template down here at this line. When you want to go straight, at the back of the base of the first base, right here, at the back of the first base. And if you did a two straight, for example, you just move it until it gets lined up just like that. If you did a three straight, etc. Okay? So now when you do a curve, you use this little notch here. And you place this little notch on the back. Just like that. You try to line it up where the back and the side happen. And then if you did a one curve, you go to the front of it just like this. So that would be a one. And if you did a two curve, you would line it up just like this. And that is how you do the movement for the epic ships. Now, when you're moving, there's a couple of different things that happen for obstacle purposes or running into things. If you run into an obstacle, a rock in particular, if you overlap it in any way, what happens is the obstacle is removed and you take a face-up damage card in the section that hit the rock or was overlapping the rock. Also, if you overlap two epic ships, you also take a face-up damage card in the section that is overlapping the ship. Now, the other thing is if you overlap, if the epic ship is moving and overlaps a small or a large ship, what happens is the small and or large ships get removed from the table. They are destroyed. And then what you do is the epic ship rolls one dice for the small ship and two dice for the large ship. And you take all hits and crits that you roll. Okay, so now to the next section, we will discuss energy. That is another new concept in X-Wing for epic ships. Now, energy, you'll notice on the cards, is going to be on the top of the cards right here. And in this particular case, the transport can hold up to 4 energy tokens. And these are the energy tokens. And now what you do with those energy tokens is you're going to be using them to spend on certain things. Attacks. Different energy cards can do different things, different attacks or different powers, different actions that it can do. For example, this comms booster can spend 1 energy to remove all stress tokens from friendly ships at range 1 to 3. Now, during a phase of the game, you're going to move with your epic ship, and then you are going to do an energy action. And on a dial, for example, when you do a 2 curve with this transport, it gets 1 energy. If you do, say, a 3 straight, it's only getting 1 energy. And what that means is after it does this maneuver, you're going to be able to gain an energy token. Now, this is the limit this transport can have, is 4. But if we go to a different ship, like this massive Imperial Raider that ends up having 2 cards, it can actually hold other items that have energy on them. And what happens there is when you gain energy, you get to allocate them to the cards. This one can hold up to 2, this one can hold up to 2, and you see in the aft here, the aft section can hold up to 6. And that is the limit. So when you gain energy, you allocate it, and if you happen to have leftover energy that you can't allocate anywhere, it gets discarded. Now, after you allocate and discard energy tokens, you can then do any upgrade cards or any actions that have the energy trait on them. So this one has energy, the comms booster. So during the energy phase of the turn, you could spend 1 energy off your section of the epic ship to do the action. After the energy phase, you then get to do your action phase. Now, on this large Imperial ship, you get to do 2 actions, and that is because you get to do an action on each section of the epic ship. So in this case, it can do a recovery or reinforce in the fore, and it can do a coordinate and a target lock in the aft. Now the transport gets to do a jam, a coordinate, a reinforce, or recovery, but it only gets to do 1 of those because it only has 1 card. It's a smaller epic ship, so it only gets to do 1 action compared to a larger Imperial ship that gets to do 2 actions based on the sections. I'll go over what the actions can do now. So you have recovery, which when you do a recovery action, you will take all the energy tokens off of your ship that you have on, now not attached to your upgrade cards, just on your ship section, and you remove them. You count how many you're going to be removing. In this case, we're removing 4, and you get to allocate energy tokens, or I mean shield tokens, onto your sections of the ship. So with Imperial Raider, it has 6 shields in the fore and 4 shields in the aft. So you can allocate those however you want. On a transport, though, you only get 4 shields. And that is how you do recovery action. There is upgrade cards that can break it, so you don't have to spend all of your shield, all your energy tokens on a section. You can just do part of them or not. Now, the next action is the reinforce action. Now, what happens is you take a reinforce token and you're going to choose which section of the epic ship you want to reinforce, either the fore or the aft. And what happens is for that whole round of combat, they get an evade token, similar to the Wookiee gunship. So for the whole round, this transport will get an evade every attack in the aft. Coordinate lets you, any ship within range 1 or 2 of your epic ship, you can give a coordinate action to, which lets you let them take an action, a free action. We all know what target lock does. We'll move to the transport that has the final thing, which is a jam. And when you take a jam action, what that does is you get to select a ship within range 1 or 2 of the epic, and you get to add up to 2 stress tokens to that ship, up until they have 2 stress tokens. Now, epic ships do not get to take focus, or I should say they're not affected by focus, evade, or stress tokens. They are affected by ion tokens. Now, what happens when they're affected by ion tokens is when they get energy after they do their maneuver, they lose 1 energy that they would have gained per each ion token that they have. And then one of the final things we'll talk about is when a ship gets destroyed or crippled, and then we'll talk about combat. So when a ship takes enough haul to get crippled, we'll use the transport. what happens is it's destroyed. So that's that. The bigger, the ones with the 2 sections on it, when they take enough hull, what happens is you're going to flip the card over. It's going to be considered crippled, and their stats do change. So, for example, this Imperial Raider has a hardpoint upgrade card, a team upgrade card, and a cargo upgrade card. And when it gets crippled, it gets reduced down to only having a hardpoint. It also, as you can see, loses a special ability, because when it's fine, it has a special ability. On the back, it's going to lose that special ability. Every epic ship is different, and each one loses different things. So now when both sections do take enough hull, then the ship is destroyed and it's removed from the table. Okay, the final thing we'll talk about is attacks. Now we're going to say this ship is somewhat loaded up, this Imperial Raider, and it's going to take an attack. And it will take an attack on this other epic ship right here. So we have an Imperial Raider right here, we have the transport right here. Now, when we take attacks, the cool thing about epic ships is they may be able to take more than one attack each combat phase. So this Raider has an attack of 4 at range 2 to 4. And that is right. They can actually go farther than 4. Some ships can shoot to range 5. And basically if you're shooting anything past range 3 or more, then you add a green dice, just like in X-Wing, regular X-Wing. So in this case, he gets to shoot 2 to 4, and that's his primary. That means every turn he's going to be able to take that shot. Next is these hard points. Hard points are usually weapon based, and for every weapon or hard point that you have on your ship, if you have enough energy to spend to use the hard point, you can make the attack. So the Imperial Raider is a nice aggressive ship because it can take 1 for free, then it could take 2, 3, 4 attacks a round. So these energies will when you do the attack, you remove the energy, and when they're depleted, then you can't make any more attacks. Some of them have combos that you have to read, but in that case, one more thing before I forget is when you're measuring for distance, you measure from distance from the base, just like in regular X-Wing, but when you measure line of sight, you measure from the middle of the base that you're shooting from. So in this case, you're measuring from this base. If you would shoot from back here, as you can see, they have a firing arc on the sides for the Imperial Raider. You would measure from back here. You'd be measuring from this section if you want to use the 4 attack. You notice this blue line here, like I explained at the beginning of the game. This separates the fore and the aft. And basically, when you're measuring your line of sight from a section to another section, you measure from the middle to the middle of the next section or to the base of the ship. So if you wanted to make this attack from here, to the fore of the Imperial Raider to the fore of the transport, you would shoot line of sight in between here, and as long as it doesn't cross the blue line, you can shoot here. If you wanted to shoot in the aft, you would do the same thing, measure from the middle of the base here to the middle of the base here. If this line would cross the blue line at any point, then you can't shoot the aft, you would have to shoot the fore. And the last thing for epic ships is when they're on the table, they actually obstruct shots, kind of like obstacles. So if this Imperial Raider wanted to shoot at the Falcon, it would have to, the line of sight would go through the transport, which means you're going to be rolling another green dice because you're going to be shooting through the transport as an obstacle. So that does it for this episode of the Wizard Club. And thank you for watching, and hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.